There is something rather curious that happens when you begin to wake up. And I do not mean waking up in the morning after a good sleep, although that is important too. I mean waking up in the deeper sense, seeing through the game, sensing the cosmic joke, realizing that you are not a stranger in this universe, but an essential expression of it. When this kind of awakening begins, you notice something strange. Your circle of friends starts to shrink, not because you suddenly became unfriendly, not because you hate people now, but because you have started to move on a different frequency. It is like tuning into a radio station that most people cannot quite receive. They hear noise where you hear music. They hear music where you are starting to notice the silence between the notes. Now let me be very clear. This is not about being superior. A spiritually awake person is not better than anyone else. If you think awakening makes you better, you have simply traded one ego game for another. You put away business cards and picked up prayer beads, but you are still playing the same game of one-upmanship. The real reason that spiritually awake people often end up with fewer friends is far more interesting than simple pride. Most human relationships are based on a kind of shared trance, a mutual hypnosis. We agree to believe certain things together. We agree that Monday morning is terrible and Friday evening is wonderful. We agree that success means climbing a particular ladder. We agree that security is hidden in bank accounts and insurance policies. We agree that happiness comes from getting what we want. But when you begin to wake up, you start to see through these agreements. You realize that Monday morning is neither terrible nor wonderful. It simply is. You see that the ladder everyone is climbing does not really lead anywhere. There is nowhere to arrive. You are already here. This is it. You see that the bank account you are building is a useful tool, but it cannot save you from the basic insecurity of being alive at all. And when you try to share these insights with your old friends, something uncomfortable happens. They look at you as if you have gone slightly mad. From their point of view, you have. You have stopped playing the game that they are still deeply invested in. It is as if you are sitting at a poker table and suddenly say, "These cards are just bits of cardboard with symbols printed on them." In a technical sense, you are right, but you have just spoiled the game for everyone. The conversations that used to hold your friendships together begin to feel hollow. A friend complains about their boss, and you can feel that the real pain is not the boss. It is their resistance to what is. A colleague obsesses about getting their child into the right college, and you sense that the anxiety is not really about the child. It is about their own unlived life, their own fear of failure. A neighbor boasts about their new car, and you see a quiet attempt to feel important in a universe that seems vast and indifferent. You could point all of this out. You could try to wake them up, but you soon discover something important. Nobody likes being shaken awake from a dream they are still enjoying. The Buddha said he could point to the path, but he could not walk it for anyone. People are deeply attached to their dreams, even when those dreams are nightmares, sometimes especially when they are nightmares, because at least a nightmare is familiar, so you find yourself in a strange position. You are living in the same world as everyone else, but you are not experiencing it in the same way. It is like realizing that the movie you are watching is just light on a screen. You can still enjoy it, maybe even more than before, but you cannot lose yourself in it like you once did. Your friends are still completely absorbed. They cry at the sad parts. They cheer at the victories. They are totally convinced that what appears on the screen is solid and ultimate. You are beginning to sense that it is a story within something larger. As you wake up, you start to value authenticity more than comfort. And this is the moment when many friendships begin to fall away like autumn leaves. Most social contact is built on mutual pretending. We pretend to be more confident than we really feel. We pretend to be interested when we are bored. We pretend to agree when we disagree. We pretend to understand when we are confused. We pretend to be fine when we are quietly falling apart. When you wake up, you lose your appetite for this pretending. You cannot find the energy to keep the mask in place. When someone asks, "How are you?" you feel a pull to answer honestly, not in a dramatic or attention-seeking way, but in a simple, real way. And this makes people uncomfortable because "how are you?" is not actually a deep question in most social settings. It is a ritual. The correct answer is, "Fine, thanks, and you?" Anything beyond that disturbs the script. You also stop laughing at jokes you do not find funny. You stop nodding along with opinions you do not share. You stop joining in gossip about people who are not in the room to speak for themselves. Not because you want to be difficult, it just feels tasteless now, like chewing cardboard after you have discovered real food. Your friends notice this. They see that you are no longer reliable as a partner in the usual social games. Something else happens as well. You become more comfortable with silence. Most people are afraid of silence in conversation. They rush to fill every gap with small talk, comments about the weather, recycled opinions about the news. But silence is where real meeting becomes possible. In silence, two consciousnesses can actually sit together without the shield of words. The spiritually awake person discovers that you can sit with someone in complete quiet and feel closer than you ever did in hours of chatter. But for most people, this is unbearable. They need constant noise, constant distraction, a constant stream of verbal ping-pong to avoid the raw mystery of simply being here together. Then there is the question of purpose and meaning. Your old friends may still be chasing goals, climbing mountains, trying to prove something. They live on the treadmill of achievement, always one success away from happiness, one purchase away from feeling complete. You have begun to sense that happiness is not at the end of any road. It is the quality of the step you are taking right now. You see that when you stop using life as a means to an end, life becomes the end itself. This creates a gap. Your friend is deeply stressed about a promotion. You can see that whether they get it or not, they will still be themselves. They will still wake up in the same consciousness tomorrow. They will still be facing the same basic questions. The promotion will not save them. Nothing will save them, because there is nothing to be saved from in the way they imagine. There is just this moment, this breath, this strange and precious fact of being alive. But you cannot say this in a simple way at a casual dinner without sounding cold or detached. They will hear it as, "You should not care about your career, you should not have goals, just give up." That is not what you mean at all. You mean something more subtle. That ambition is fine, careers are fine. All of this is part of the dance. But the dance is the point, not some future place you think the dance will take you. Try explaining that over coffee and watch the confusion in their eyes. At some point, the spiritually awake person has died in a particular way, not physically but psychologically. The person they thought they were, that carefully built identity with its story of past and future, has been seen through. Once you have died in this way, once you have seen that your ego is a useful fiction, like inches or centimeters, you cannot take the drama of personality quite so seriously. Your friends are still fully identified with their personalities. They believe they are their opinions, their titles, their failures, their reputation. An insult wounds them deeply because they think they are the one being insulted. A compliment lifts them high because they think they are the one being praised. You have begun to see that you are not your personality any more than you are your shadow on the wall. The personality is something you are doing. It is a movement, a pattern, not your deepest nature. This creates what we might call an authenticity gap. Your friends are performing their identities, and they need an audience. They need approval, agreement, recognition. You are no longer a solid audience member because you see the performance as performance. You can still appreciate it, even enjoy it, but you cannot fully believe it in the way they need you to. And here is where it gets very interesting. The spiritually awake person discovers that aloneness and loneliness are not the same thing. Loneliness is the pain of feeling cut off from others. Aloneness is something different. Aloneness is the sense that at the deepest level, you are not a fragment at all. You are the whole field of life, experiencing itself from one point of view. You are not a tiny separate piece begging the universe to include you. You are the universe looking out through a pair of eyes. When this is felt, the desperate energy leaves your relationships. You stop needing friends to complete you, or to fix you, or to rescue you from yourself. You can enjoy companionship without clinging to it. You can be alone without feeling abandoned. And strangely, this makes you less attractive as a friend to people who are still trying to be saved by relationships. Most people do not want friends who see through their stories. They want friends who will agree that their problems are exactly as big and as real as they feel. Friends who will confirm that the dream is solid, who will join them in complaint and outrage, who will repeat the lines of the shared script. The awake person cannot do this with a clean heart. They can offer real compassion. They can sit with you in your pain. They can love you deeply. But they cannot pretend that the story in your mind is the whole truth of what you are. Your friend is destroyed because their relationship has ended. You can see that they are not only grieving the person, they are grieving the fantasy of what that person meant for their identity. You can hold their hand through the grief, but you cannot feed the story that says, "Without them, I am nothing." Often this is felt as a lack of support. Something else happens. The awake person stops joining collective illusions. They have trouble getting excited about tribal slogans. My country is better than yours. My political side is the good one. My team, my religion, my group is the chosen one. They see that all these identities are games of us and them. Ways to feel special by comparison. Ways to forget the basic unity that sits underneath all differences. But human society runs on these identifications. They are the glue for many groups. When you stop chanting the slogans, you become an unreliable member of the tribe. And for many people, friendship is a tribal arrangement. We are friends because we belong to the same side. There is also a different sense of time. The spiritually awake person no longer lives mostly in the past and future. They have discovered that the only real time is now. The past is a memory appearing now. The future is an image appearing now. There is only ever this moment, again and again. Most social activity is built on shared anxiety about the future or shared nostalgia about the past. Planning, worrying, remembering, predicting. When you are actually present, you often have less to say in these conversations. Your friend wants to worry about retirement 30 years from now. You can see that they are missing the only retirement that truly matters, retiring from the constant psychological time that steals the present. The awake person also discovers something about solitude. They realize that solitude is not the opposite of connection. It is the foundation of real connection. You can only truly meet another when you have met yourself, even a little. Meeting yourself requires silence, time alone, space to sit with your own mind and heart, without distraction. Modern life is terrified of this. People fill every gap with noise and stimulation. They are always texting, scrolling, watching, listening, talking. They call this being connected. Often it is just refined avoidance, a way of running from the only person they will never escape, which is themselves. The awake person does not avoid company, but they do not fear being alone. They have learned that you can feel lonely in a crowd and deeply connected in complete solitude. To people who need constant social contact to feel safe, this is confusing. It makes you seem distant or strange. Another shift appears. The spiritually awake person has stopped trying to control life in the old way. They see that the universe has been managing quite well without their personal supervision for a very long time. So they begin to relax a little. They move with life instead of fighting every current. Most people are still trying to control almost everything. Their image, their future, other people's opinions, outcomes that are not really in their hands. They live in a constant clench. They need friends who will join them in this project, who will worry with them, plan with them, maintain the illusion that if they just try hard enough, they can make life safe. The awake person cannot honestly support this. They can offer presence, acceptance, and love, but they cannot strengthen the belief that control of the uncontrollable is possible or necessary. This can look like not caring when it is actually the deepest care. You also begin to see through the victim's stories. Everyone has them. Stories about how they were wronged, how life treated them unfairly, how they would finally be free if only some person or event had been different. These stories give a sense of identity and innocence. When you wake up, you see that holding on to these stories is like drinking poison and hoping someone else will feel sick. This does not mean bad things did not happen. It does not mean injustice is not real. It means that building your whole self around the wound is optional suffering added on top of the original pain. Try saying that clearly to someone who is deep in their story and watch how quickly the friendship cools. The awake person also makes peace with death in a new way, not in a dark or obsessive way, but in a clear way. Death becomes a reminder that every moment is precious. When you truly digest that you and everyone you love will die, something softens. You stop postponing your life. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions. You stop treating this moment as a stepping stone to another moment. Most people are in quiet denial about death. They do everything possible to look away. They build their lives as if they have endless time. They need friends who will help maintain this denial. When you carry death as an honest companion, you become an uncomfortable mirror. Simply by being yourself, you remind people of what they are trying not to feel. And yet, an awake person is not cold or closed. They may love more deeply than ever, but the love has changed its flavor. It is not need dressed up as love. It is not a trade disguised as affection. It is not two people using each other to avoid meeting themselves. It is a love that recognizes the same light in every being, that does not need anything in return in order to keep loving. For many, this is too much. They are used to conditional love. I will love you if you make me feel good, if you agree with me, if you reflect back the image I want to see. So what does the spiritually awake person do with all of this? They do not try to force their insight on anyone. They do not become a preacher who must convert the world. They simply live from their understanding and allow life to sort the rest out. They accept that they may have fewer friends, but the friendships that remain will be deeper and more real. They understand that awakening is not the finish line, but the beginning of a different way of moving through life. They stay humble because they know ego can sneak back in at any time, even wearing spiritual clothes. They watch their own tendency to build a new identity around being awake. They notice when they start to feel superior. They come back again and again to not knowing. And perhaps most important of all, they realize that having fewer friends is not a failure. It is simply what happens when you stop playing in certain games. The point of life was never to collect contacts like trophies. The point is to wake up, to be present, to live honestly, to love without chains. If that means you spend more evenings in your own company, then that is how it is. Because in truth, you are not alone. How could you be? You are the universe experiencing itself. You are awareness playing at being a particular person for a short and shining moment. And once you sense this, not just as an idea, but as a quiet knowing. The question, why do I have fewer friends now, begins to lose its bite. What matters more is, am I willing to be true to what I see, even if it costs me everything that once made me feel safe? If you are asking that question, then you are already walking the path most people never notice. And here in quiet depths, you do not have to walk it entirely alone.